Day Year 10. Welcome to Lesson 2. What we're going to look at today is spatial variations in human well-being. So we're going to explain what that term actually means, and then we're going to explore it. So that's your heading for today, Lesson 2, spatial variations in human well-being. If you can type that down or write it in your books, rather, that would be great. So we're going to review our learning intention and success criteria like we do at the start of each lesson. So our learning intention for today is to describe ways of measuring and mapping human well-being and development for the purpose of identifying and analysing spatial variations. Now that is a bit of a mouthful. If I could summarise it, we're going to be looking at different ways that we measure human well-being, so how happy or sad someone might be feeling, how safe or secure they might be feeling in their own circumstances, as well as do they have the essential things they need to survive and whatnot. So we're going to measure well-being, but we're going to do it through something called spatial variations. So I want to break down what this word means. So once you've written that learning intention down, make sure you do write that little asterisk, because I want you to write down what this is as well in your books, please. So what does spatial variations actually mean? So it's a big concept in geography, and you've probably seen it before already, and for some of you this might be a refresher, but for some of you this may be the first time you've heard the term. So what spatial variations means is this: it's the differences or variations over an area of the Earth's surface. So what that means is that you are comparing something, say for example human well-being, on one space of the Earth's surface and comparing it to something else. So in layman's terms, you're comparing and measuring something from one location to the other location. So for example 1 here, if I was to ask you what the spatial variations of pollution is, you might say in the city, so in one location, it's a lot higher, but in a rural location, such as outback where there's not as much pollution, that pollution and impact on the environment would be less. Okay, so if I was to ask you the spatial variations between pollution in the city and the rural area, that's what you could say. So you're telling me what the differences are in between the locations. So for example, in the city, you might talk about there's more traffic, there's more people, therefore that equals more pollution, whereas in a rural area, there's less people, there's not as many cars around, there's not as many things that are creating pollutants. Okay. Another example is you might get asked what's the spatial variations of poverty between India or Australia, for example. So again, looking at two different locations and comparing it. So we might analyse that Australia, being what we would call a first world country or developed country, has far less poverty than India, which is well known for a lot of its slums and things like that. So on another really different example, if we were to spare the spatial variations of Brisbane Water Secondary College, we could look at Yamina campus being one location and Woy Woy campus being the other location. One location does junior schooling, the other does senior schooling. So that's the spatial variations or the differences between two locations for Brisbane Water Secondary College. So I hope that breaks it down a bit more for you so you understand what that means. The second thing we're going to look at is our success criteria. So what we're going to do to be able to understand and analyse spatial variations is that we're going to identify positive and negative characteristics of human well-being, and we're going to compare it on different locations. So we're going to refer to it based on spatial variations. And then what we're going to do is make a judgment about human well-being, an informed judgment based on some evidence. So if I was to break it down again a bit more, we're going to look at different areas in Australia, and we're going to look at some photos. And what we're going to do with those photos, by looking at these different locations, we're going to list some positive and negative characteristics of those locations and how that would positively or negatively impact your human well-being. So once you've written those things down, move on to slide 4. Here we're looking at broad indicators of human well-being. So what I would like you guys to do in your books is write this down as a heading, and I want you to write these 5 dot points down, and then I want you to indicate, leave a little bit of space after each of them. I want you to indicate how each of the following might give someone a sense of well-being. So how might feeling fulfilled or having purpose give you a sense of well-being, right? How does having safety or shelter give you a sense of well-being? Health, environment, people. It could just be a brief, quick example, and there's no right answer or the right answer. There's probably lots of different right answers for each of these. So writing just one thing on how each of these might give someone a sense of well-being. Once you've done that, so pause this now, do that. Once you've done that, move on to slide 5. So what we're going to do here is, this is our main activity for the lesson. So we are going to look at 4 different locations. Most of them are in Australia, but not all of them. And we're going to make a judgment. So we're going to evaluate or assess what the human well-being is like in that area, and then we're going to compare it to different areas. So we're going to be looking at spatial variations, again, difference in location, and we're going to make a judgment about the positive and negative impacts on the human well-being for the people that live there based on some photos. So before we get into that, usually in class we would have printed out this nice table for you to have it all handy and ready to go. But what I would like you to do is reserve 2 full blank pages. Now they might be side by side like this. Okay, and I want you to dedicate half a page for each location. So there's going to be 4 locations in total. And what I would like you to do is copy a table down like this for half a page. Okay, so you have your location at the top, and then I want you to break it down into a table. If it's easier to look at through this, that might be a little bit easier. So you want to have your location as your heading, and then draw up a little table of what you can smell, see and hear. What would life be like here, and why is it like? So I'm going to do the first one for you. So once you've glued that in, you've got your 2 page spreadsheet. Go ahead. I will also attach this document to Google Classroom. If you've got access to a printer at home and you want to print it off, that's great. But if you don't, that's also fine as well. You can draw that table into your book. So the first one, the location is Sydney, Australia. So you want to list that in your table. So I'm going to do this one for you. So my first question, according to our table here, is what could I smell, hear or see in this location? Now, all of this is going to build up over time, and really analyse and show us a bit more about the human well-being aspect. So what I can hear, see or smell here, so some things I could see, obviously some very what we'd call aesthetic views, so things that are pleasing to the eye. So we've got a picture of a nice harbour here. I can tell it's a very developed city and area, so I can see a lot of services and essential services here. There's a lot of businesses. There'd be tons of restaurants and entertainment venues, such as the Opera House that I can see there. There's some 2 national or 3 national icons here in this photo. We've got Centre Point Tower, the Harbour Bridge here, and then the Sydney Opera House. Even Luna Park will just be around here. So there's a lot of really great things that would assist your human well-being. So you've got different things like entertainment, you've got a lot of jobs here, you've got a lot of business, a lot of cultural activities you can do. There'd be ferries and cruises and things that you can take on the harbour. So there are probably some of the positive things that you could hear, see, and or smell. So a lot of different foods and cuisines. So that would be some of the positive things. Some of the negative things that we might be able to see is that it would have probably higher increased pollution. Now this photo may not demonstrate that to the best degree, but on some days cities tend to be a bit more pollutant, and because there are a lot more people in the city as well, you're more likely to see homelessness as well. So that could be a negative impact on someone's human well-being as well there. But on the whole, I would say that the human well-being in this area would be fairly good. So what would life be like here? So that's kind of, I could list what I could hear, see or smell there. What would life be like here? So according to what I can hear, see, smell, I would say that life here would be very good. As I said, there's lots of access to different jobs. You've got a lot of different entertainment services. You've got all the essential things you need to survive: food, water, shelter, safety. But you've also got a lot of those other things that really contribute to a positive human well-being experience. Being the city, there's a lot of different activities and things that you can partake in that would improve your human well-being. Why is it like this? So it would be like this because it's one of the capital cities of Australia, so there's a lot of investment that's gone into this place. There's also a lot of people there, so the demand for these services would be a lot higher, and because the demand's higher, there's going to be more money that's pumped into it, there's going to be more infrastructure, etc. And all of this would make the human wellbeing experience a lot better. You get better services, better entertainment, better food, more options. All those sorts of things come with having more population and having high demand. So for me, I'm going to give it an overall rating. And that's what maybe you would like to do on the side, maybe even in what would life be like here. I want you to rate it out of 10, according to 10 being the perfect human wellbeing center, and then 1 being the lowest. I want you to give it a rating out of 1 to 10. So that's giving you a modeled approach to that. What I would usually do, say, in class, is we would do this guided. So I'd get you to work with your friends to answer the next 2, and you're more than welcome to do that. I know a lot of students are FaceTiming each other while they're doing their work or creating their own Zoom calls, so feel free to work with other people in this space to do these next 2. This one's location is Gosford, Australia, so I still want you to do the same thing. So what could you see, smell, hear or see? What would life be like here, and why do you think it's like this? So in doing all these things, you're making a judgment or an evaluation on this place based on its human well-being. You're listing some positives and some negative characteristics and then making a rating out of 10. So do that for Gosford. Then do it for location 3, which is Broken Hill, Australia. And here's an image there. And then your final one is we're moving away from Australia into India. So you've got 4 different photos there. This is an image of the Mumbai slums in India. So Mumbai is a very large city in India. This picture, I think, highlights it really well. You can see all this rich development here, and then there's just almost appears like this border cut-off line, and then you can see all these slums here in the same place. So there's a really big divide in human well-being in this part of the world. So make your assessment on that as well. Once you guys have done that, I would like you to move on to reviewing your learning intention and success criteria. Similar to the last lesson, I want you to give it a tick if you think you understand it and you got it. Maybe give it a cross if you haven't, and then let your teacher know so that they can get in contact with you to make sure that you understand this content. That's it for lesson 2. Hope you learned something new. If you have any questions, obviously post them in the comments below to your classroom post or email your teacher. Thank you.